Plot Summary 68, Murder in the Cathedral. Introduction. Murder in the Cathedral by T.S. Eliot was first performed in 1935. It is a verse drama that presents the assassination of Archbishop Thomas Becket in Canterbury Cathedral in 1170. Most of the information that Eliot has drawn upon comes from the writing of Edward Grimm, who was an eyewitness to the murder. The play basically describes how an individual opposes the authority. When the play was written, fascism was on the rise in Central Europe. As per the instructions given by the producer of the play, Eliot removed or replaced some of the material from the play, but he later transformed it into a poem titled Burned Norton. T.S. Eliot had converted to the Anglican Church. He was known as the famed poet of modernist despair. In the year 1935, he was assigned the task of writing a play for Kent's annual Canterbury Festival. However, there were certain clear restrictions on the subject matter. In his play Murder in the Cathedral, Eliot decided to dramatize the death of Thomas Becket. It was not expected, but it was completely appropriate. Since Eliot was a very innovative writer, curiosity began to develop because everyone wanted to know what interesting elements he would add to the story. The play Murder in the Cathedral was in fact a combination of theology and tragedy. The play is completely set around Canterbury. It describes the time after Thomas came back from 7 years of exile in France. Although the story follows the historical record, the play seems to be exploring psychology and political interpretations in favor of serene and spiritual consideration of the sacrifice of martyrdom. The play had been written to be performed in the actual Canterbury Cathedral. It is designed to show the experience of a Catholic Mass. The character that played the role of Thomas was given a sermon during the interlude, which he would have actually preached alone at the pulpit in the church. During the festival, when the play was performed for the first time, it was an instant success. Soon after that it opened in London. From there the play toured England. Since the time of its first performance, Murder in the Cathedral has remained T.S. Eliot's best-known and most produced play. It has also been adapted into several movie and theatrical versions. It is still a very significant part of the Thomas Becket myth in the Western world. The play, whenever it is revived, is watched by a huge number of people. Plot Summary. The opening scene of the play takes place on 2nd of December, 1170, in the Archbishop's Hall. In the first scene we find a chorus, a group of women from Canterbury. They have gathered there with a premonition of a fearsome event that is supposed to come. It is a kind of long speech, and the women express how there are sufferings in their lives and in the life of their archbishop. The Archbishop is Thomas Becket. Thomas Becket has come back to England after 7 years of exile in France. He had a terrible clash with King Henry II. The women think that the king would be angrier to know about his return, and the lives of the people there would become more difficult. After the speech, 3 priests enter the hall. They also lament Summary's absence, and then they begin to talk about the events which might take place after his return. Suddenly, a herald comes there. He has brought the news that Thomas Becket has indeed come back to England, and soon he will be there in Canterbury. The herald does not believe that there will be reconciliation between the king and Thomas Becket. He shows his concern that soon there will be violence after the return of the Archbishop. After the departure of the herald, the 3 priests begin to reflect on Summary's time as Chancellor of England. He was a secular administrator under King Henry. The chorus also listens to the discussion that takes place among the priests. They express their disappointment at Summary's return. They are sure that his return means more suffering for them. They accept that their lives are difficult, but they are predictable. They do not want to live through the turmoil of new political and spiritual chaos that they are going to face after the return of the Archbishop. The second priest is not happy to hear that, and he tells the chorus to at least fake their happiness to welcome Thomas back. Suddenly, Thomas enters, and he tells the priest that he is wrong to chide them. He says that there is certain difficulty which they are going to face. Thomas Becket tells them to have patience because no one knows God's plans. One by one, the numbers of tempters enter. They try to compromise Summary's integrity. The first tempter speaks first, and he reminds Thomas of his liberal youthful ways. He tries to tempt Thomas to relinquish his responsibilities if he wants more carefree life. The second tempter tells Thomas to reclaim his title of Chancellor. He says that as a chancellor he can help the poor and do them more good than as a religious figure. The third tempter speaks about a form of government in which a ruler and barons work together. He offers Thomas to rule and do something better, being the part of the government. Thomas does not accept any of the suggestions. Since they are tempters, they have to tempt Thomas, but he has already rejected temptation in his life. Then comes the fourth tempter and suggests to Thomas the idea of martyrdom. He says that by that Thomas would be able to dominate his enemies. Through martyrdom, Thomas would be remembered for ages if he allowed himself to die for the Church. Thomas is obviously shaken by this temptation. He believes that to die for pride is the wrong reason. He remains in the dilemma for a long time. The other characters deliver a long address about the uncertainty of life. When their lectures are finished, Thomas informs them that he is not in favor of martyrdom for fame, but he is ready to submit to God's will. At this point, Part I comes to end. In the interlude between the first and second part, Thomas Becket preaches a sermon. He restates the lesson which he happens to have learned at the end of the first part. This interlude takes place in the Cathedral on Christmas morning, 1170. Thomas talks about the mystery of Christianity. This mystery both mourns and celebrates the fact of Christ's death. He tells the audiences that the appreciation of martyrs is a smaller version of that mystery. He says that the true martyr becomes the instrument of God. He happens to have lost his will in the will of God, not lost it but found it, because he finds freedom in his submission to God. At the end of his sermon, Thomas admits that he might not preach to that congregation again. Part 2 opens in the Archbishop's Hall on 29th of December, 1170. The chorus is terrified and it begins an ominous address. After the speech of the chorus, 4 boorish knights enter. The knights insist that they had come there from Henry from France. They want to meet Thomas. The priests try to distract the knights, but they insist on seeing Thomas. When Thomas appears, the knights insult and chide him. They say that Thomas has committed disloyalty towards Henry and he has misused the position of the Archbishop to incite opposition to England. Thomas denies the charges vehemently, but the knights try to attack him. The priests intervene and stop them. Then a political argument begins. Thomas denies the charges and he insults the knights. The knights are furious and they threaten the priests with death if they allow Thomas to escape from there. The knights leave, giving this threat to the priests. After the departure of the knights, the chorus delivers a cruel and evocative address. Thomas tries to console them. When the knights come back there, the priests request Thomas to flee, but he refuses. The knights take him forcibly out of the hall. They take him into the cathedral, although he continues to protest. The scene changes and the chorus women prepare themselves for the ensuing scene of the death. The priests close the doors. Thomas says that it is God's plan. The priests try to make Thomas understand, but he does not listen to them. The priests finally open the door and the knights enter. They are drunk. They demand that Thomas should lift all the excommunications which he has put upon English rulers. Thomas does not bow and he refuses to follow the commands of the knights. Eventually, the knights murder him. While he is being murdered, the chorus delivers a long and desperate speech. They lament the life they will have to lead after the murder of Thomas. They will have to live in the shadow of so mass martyrdom. Having murdered Thomas, the knights directly address the audience. They try to defend their action. The first knight confesses that he is not good at argument, so he introduces the other knights. The second knight acknowledges that the history and the audience will hate them, but he begs the audience to understand that the knights were not interested in killing Thomas. He says that they were only following the commands which were for good of Britain. The third knight delivers a long and complex argument. He says that Thomas Becket was guilty of betraying the English people and his murder was rightly done. He justifies Becket's murder. Finally, the fourth knight says that Becket himself desired his own death by pursuing martyrdom for the sake of pride. He says that Thomas Becket is guilty of suicide. He tries to prove that the knights are not guilty of Becket's murder. Having presented their arguments to the audience, the knights leave. The priests begin to lament Thomas' death. They are worried about the world. The chorus delivers the last speech. They reveal that they have accepted their duty as Christians. They accept that living up to the sacrifice Thomas made it difficult, but they will be spiritually richer. The chorus women beg mercy and forgiveness from God and Thomas. The play ends at this point.